500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote a secret manuscript on seduction, a text so disturbing, so manipulative, and so dangerously effective that even his own contemporaries hid it from the public. They didn't want ordinary men gaining access to this level of psychological control over women. Today, you're going to learn exactly what was inside that manuscript and how to apply each one of these dark strategies to seduce any woman you want. If you're new to the channel, subscribe right now, because what I'm about to reveal goes far beyond anything a modern dating coach has ever taught you. This isn't cheap pickup advice. This is pure psychological engineering applied directly to seduction. Drop a like, share this with the brothers who need this knowledge, and prepare yourself to dominate the game of attraction the way only the top 3% of men ever do. Now, let's begin. Before we get into the specific strategies, you need to understand the core principle Machiavelli discovered about female attraction. And this one principle will completely change the way you approach women. Listen carefully. Women are not seduced by what you say or do directly. They are seduced by the emotional states you create inside them. And those emotional states are triggered through a precise combination of uncertainty, intermittent validation, and displays of social value. Most men make the fatal mistake of trying to seduce women using logic. They explain why they'd make a good partner. They list their qualities. They show interest openly, directly, and constantly. And that kills attraction. And each of those actions destroys any chance of attraction because they operate in the wrong paradigm. They try to convince her conscious mind, while seduction happens entirely in her primitive brain, in her emotions, in her limbic system. Machiavelli understood something modern men have completely forgotten. Seduction is not a process of addition, it's a process of subtraction. It's not about adding more compliments, more attention, more availability. It's about removing certainty, removing predictability, removing emotional security, because the female brain is wired to obsess over what it cannot fully understand, what it cannot completely control, what threatens to slip away at any moment. Now, let's get into the first dirty strategy Machiavelli documented. He called it the principle of asymmetric validation, and it works like this. From the very first contact with a woman, you establish a pattern where you give validation and then remove it in a completely unpredictable way. I'm not talking about obvious playing hard to get. I'm talking about creating a dopamine cycle in her brain that literally makes her addicted to your approval. Let me explain the neuroscience behind this. When a woman receives constant, predictable validation, her brain habituates. Dopamine is released at first, but then it levels off. No emotion, no addiction, no obsession. But when validation is intermittent, when she never knows if she'll get your approval or your indifference, her brain enters a state of constant anticipation. That anticipation triggers a dopamine release greater than the reward itself. It's the exact same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You don't know when you'll win, so you play obsessively. Apply this principle to seduction and you create a woman who can't stop thinking about you, who checks her phone constantly waiting for your message, who analyzes every interaction trying to decode whether you like her or not. Here's how you implement it step by step. First contact. Show moderate interest. Not excessive, not cold, just moderate. Let her know you exist on her radar, but make it clear you're not desperate for her attention. Second interaction. Raise the interest slightly. Maybe a specific compliment, maybe a longer conversation, maybe a casual touch. She starts thinking, okay, he likes me. Third interaction. This is where the strike happens. You become noticeably more distant, not cold in an obvious way, just less available, less interested, more focused on other things. And her brain starts to panic. Wait, what changed? Did I do something wrong? Does he not like me anymore? In that moment of confusion, her mind switches into pursuit mode, because now there is uncertainty. Now there is something she feels she might be losing. Fourth interaction. You return with high validation. You're warm, attentive, maybe even charming, and she feels that flood of relief and dopamine. Oh, he does like me, I didn't lose him. And this cycle, these emotional roller coasters, create a chemical addiction to your presence. Every time you pull back, she feels the pain of withdrawal. Every time you return, she feels the rush of the drug, and she becomes completely hooked. The key is unpredictability. If you always pull back after the third interaction, she learns the pattern and the effect dies. But if you vary it, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes not at all, her brain can never map out your behavior. And that inability to predict you keeps her in a constant state of obsession. Now, the second dirty strategy, pre-selected value. Machiavelli observed that people don't evaluate value independently. They judge value based on how others judge value. And this is especially true for women. A woman doesn't decide if you're attractive by looking at you in isolation. She decides by watching how other women react to you. Studies on social attraction prove this repeatedly. When a man is seen with attractive women, his perceived value skyrockets among other women. But when he is seen alone, or only with men, his perceived value drops significantly. Why? Because the female brain uses other women as external validators of your genetics and social worth. If other women want you, there must be something valuable about you. If other women ignore you, you're probably not worth much. It's a mental shortcut, a way for her brain to avoid doing the full evaluation on its own. And you can exploit this shortcut brutally to raise your perceived value without changing anything about yourself. Here's how. Never, ever approach a woman you want without establishing visible preselection first. What does that mean? It means that before you talk to her directly, she needs to see you interacting positively with other women. She needs to see other women laughing with you, touching you casually, enjoying your company. This plants a seed in her brain that you are valuable, before either of you exchange a single word. Now, if you don't have female friends who can give you this preselection, build them. Create genuine friendships with women you're not sexually attracted to, women who can be around you in social environments, who can give you that visible social validation that makes other women notice you. This isn't manipulation toward them, you are genuinely friends. But the side effect is that your perceived value skyrockets. And when you finally approach the woman you truly want, her brain has already done the preliminary evaluation. She has already seen other women value you. So you must have value. You've passed the first filter without even trying. Now your job is far easier because you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a pre-established position of value. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the power of perception over reality, noting that perception shapes behavior far more than objective truth ever does. In seduction, this is absolutely critical. It doesn't matter how much real value you have. What matters is how much value she perceives in you. And the fastest way to raise perceived value is through the social approval of other women. Now the third dirty strategy, and this one is particularly powerful, strategic use of competition dread. This means keeping a subtle, constant awareness in her mind that you could choose another woman over her. Not in an obvious or threatening way, but subtly, almost invisibly, just enough for her primitive brain to activate competition mode. Evolutionary psychology explains why this works so well. For millions of years, women who didn't compete effectively for high-value men ended up with low-value men, or alone. So they developed an internal system that detects female competition and responds with amplified effort. When she senses that other women want what she has, or what she wants, her brain activates every seduction mechanism she has. Here's how to apply competition dread without acting like an obvious jerk. First, never keep your phone completely hidden when you're together. Let her occasionally see notifications from other women. Don't open the messages in front of her. Don't hide them in a paranoid way either. Just let her brain record the simple fact that other women are contacting you. Second, casually mention other women in your life without giving full context. Don't say, "My friend Maria," just say, "Mariam commented to me." Let her brain fill in the empty spaces. Let her wonder who Maria is, what kind of relationship you have with her, and whether she's competition. That uncertainty activates her competitive instinct without you doing anything directly. Third rule, and this one is crucial, never cancel plans with others just to be with her. If you already have plans, keep them, even if those plans involve other women, especially if they involve other women. This communicates that your access is not guaranteed. It shows her she is competing for your time against other options, and she needs to raise her game if she wants to win. Balance is the key. Too much competition dread, and she decides you're not worth the effort. Too little, and she becomes comfortable, believing she already has you. The sweet spot is keeping her slightly unsure about your exclusive availability, but still interested enough to consider you worth pursuing. It's a thin line, but when you hit it, the effect is devastating. Fourth dirty strategy, the calculated management of emotional intimacy. Men make the mistake of thinking that sharing everything about themselves creates connection. Technically, yes, it creates connection, but it does not create attraction. Excess emotional intimacy too early kills attraction because it removes mystery, removes challenge, removes her need to work to know you. Machiavelli understood that power comes from asymmetric information. The one who knows more has less power. The one who reveals less holds more power. Apply this to seduction and the strategy becomes crystal clear. You learn everything about her, but you reveal very little about yourself. You ask deep questions, but you answer questions about you vaguely, lightly, without depth. You create one-sided intimacy where she feels vulnerable and exposed, but you remain a mystery. Here's how you do it. When she asks about your life, your past, your emotions, you answer with selective truths. You don't lie, but you don't give the full picture either. If she asks about past relationships, you say, "I've had some interesting experiences, but I prefer to focus on the present." If she asks about your family, give surface-level details, but don't open emotional wounds. Meanwhile, you dig deep into her psychology. You ask questions that make her reveal her fears, her insecurities, her deepest desires. And when she answers, you listen intensely. Not just listening, analyzing. You're building a psychological map of what drives her, what scares her, what excites her, which emotional button you can press to trigger specific responses. This asymmetry creates two powerful effects. First, she feels deeply connected to you because she shared vulnerability, but you don't feel as connected because you kept your walls up. This means she is more emotionally invested than you, and the person who is more invested has the least power. Second, because you remain mysterious, she stays curious. She wants to know more about you, and that curiosity keeps her interest high. Studies on emotional attachment show that one-sided vulnerability creates dependence. The person who exposes themselves emotionally becomes dependent on the validation of the one who listened. So when she opens up while you stay closed, you create emotional dependency on you without creating any dependency in yourself. It's asymmetrical by design, and that asymmetry gives you control. Fifth dirty strategy, maybe the most powerful of all, intermittent negative reinforcement. It sounds complex, but it's simple. It means that occasionally, unpredictably, you introduce slightly negative experiences into your interactions with her. I'm not talking about being cruel or abusive. I'm talking about micro-rejections, small disappointments, subtle moments where she doesn't get exactly what she expected from you. Why does this work? For the same reason intermittent validation works. The human brain pays more attention to variable stimuli than to constant ones. If you're always perfect, always say the right thing, always meet her expectations, you become predictable. And what is predictable becomes boring. But if you occasionally disappoint her a little, if you occasionally aren't available when she needs you, if you occasionally prioritize something else over her, you create variability. And that variability keeps her on alert. Her brain keeps working, trying to understand you, trying to predict you, trying to make sure she isn't losing your interest. It's mentally exhausting for her, but that mental exhaustion is exactly what creates obsession. Because when something occupies your mind constantly, even if it's stressful, you form an attachment to it. Here's how to apply it without being destructive. If you agreed to meet at 8 p.m., occasionally arrive at 8:15 without a dramatic excuse. Just say, "Sorry, things got complicated," and say nothing more. If you normally reply to messages within an hour, occasionally take 6, not always, just occasionally. If you're usually very affectionate, occasionally be more distant, not cold, just focused on other things. These micro-rejections make the moments when you do give her full attention feel far more precious. It's the contrast that creates value. If you have unlimited access to something, you don't value it. But if that access becomes inconsistent, you value every moment you get. You're training her brain to value your attention by making it rare and unpredictable. And here's the critical element that prevents this from becoming emotional abuse. The positive to negative ratio must be about 4 to 1. For every slightly negative experience, you need 4 positive ones. That keeps the overall relationship positive while introducing enough variability to prevent boredom and complacency. If you reverse that ratio, you cross into toxic territory, and she will eventually leave. Machiavelli wrote that it is best to be loved and feared simultaneously, but if you must choose, it is safer to be feared. In seduction, this means she must love you, but also fear losing you. Love without fear creates complacency. Fear without love creates escape. But the combination of love and fear of loss creates a passionate obsession. Sixth strategy, establishing a dominant frame from the very first second. The frame is the reality you impose on the interaction. In seduction, the frame must be established instantly. You do not enter her frame where she judges whether you are good enough for her. You establish your frame where you evaluate whether she is interesting enough for your time and attention. This requires a specific mindset. You're not trying to impress her. You're evaluating whether she's worth knowing. You're not nervous about whether she likes you. You're curious about whether she has the qualities you value. You're not grateful she's giving you time. You are generous for sharing your time with her. And this reversal of the traditional frame completely transforms the power dynamic. When you approach with the evaluator frame instead of the "please approve me" frame, your body language changes, your tone changes, your questions change. Instead of asking things that prove your value, you ask things that evaluate hers. Instead of seeking her approval, you offer yours selectively. Instead of desperately extending the interaction, you end it when you lose interest. Women respond dramatically to this frame because they are used to the opposite. They are used to men chasing them, seeking their approval, doing all the work. So when a man appears who operates from an evaluator frame, who isn't easily impressed, who has standards she must meet, her brain interprets it as a signal of extremely high value. Because only a man with abundant options can afford to be selective. You implement this frame by becoming genuinely selective. Don't fake disinterest if you're desperate inside. Develop real standards and hold them. If she shows behavior you wouldn't tolerate from anyone in your life, end the interaction. If she doesn't match the qualities you truly value, don't keep pursuing her. If the interaction isn't mutually enjoyable, walk away without drama. This evaluator frame is not arrogance, it is deep self-respect. It's the understanding that your time and attention have real value, and only people who add value to your life deserve access to them. And when you operate from this place of genuine self-respect, ironically, you become far more attractive. Women sense self-respect instinctively and respond with respect of their own. Seventh and final dirty strategy: the creation of shared emotional peak experiences. Neuroscience of attraction has shown that women don't fall in love with men. They fall in love with how they felt during specific experiences with those men. And if you can associate yourself in her mind with emotional peak states, with moments of euphoria, with experiences she will never forget, you create a connection that goes beyond logic. Relationships that begin in high adrenaline situations, extreme circumstances, or intense emotional experiences create stronger attachment than relationships formed in normal conditions. The brain links the emotional intensity of the moment to the person who was there. It's a mental shortcut, but it works every time. So your job is to create those peak experiences intentionally. Don't wait for them to happen randomly. Put her in situations that generate intense emotions. It could be a physical adventure. It could be deep intellectual connection. It could be shared emotional vulnerability. It could be an overwhelming aesthetic experience. What matters isn't the type of intensity. What matters is that the moment is memorable and that you are tied to it. Take her to do something she has never done. Take her somewhere that overwhelms her senses. Have conversations that make her reflect on her life in a completely new way. Create a moment of connection so powerful that when she remembers it, she remembers you as inseparable from that emotion. And every time she seeks that feeling again, her brain will lead her right back to you. Studies on emotional memory show that we remember intense experiences far more clearly than neutral ones. And when we recall intense experiences, we partially relive the emotions attached to them. So if you were part of the most intense emotional experience she had this month, every time her brain accesses that memory, she will feel a renewed attraction to you. That's emotional memory working in your favor. Now, brother, these 7 dirty strategies are not isolated tricks you use once and forget. These are principles you integrate into your entire way of connecting with women. Asymmetric validation, preselection, competition, dread, intimacy, asymmetry, intermittent, negative reinforcement, dominant framing, emotional peak experiences. Each one amplifies the effects of the others. When you combine these strategies, when you use them consistently, when you operate from these principles instead of the romantic lies you were taught, you become something women can't categorize. You're not the nice guy they can use. You're not the obvious bad boy they can avoid. You become something in between, something unpredictable, something that activates their entire attraction system all at once. And that, brother, is exactly what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago. Seduction isn't about being perfect. It's about being strategic. It's not about giving unconditional love. It's about creating specific emotional states. It's not about being transparent. It's about being calculatedly mysterious. It's not about constant availability. It's about strategic rarity. If this video gave you clarity about why your past approaches failed, if you finally understand what you were doing wrong, then subscribe and become a channel member. Members get deeper analysis, specific examples of each strategy, and personalized correction for the most common mistakes. That's the difference between understanding theory and dominating execution. Now I want your participation. In the comments, write which of the 7 strategies you're going to implement first. Which one do you think will have the biggest impact on your situation? Your experience applying these principles can help other brothers avoid mistakes and accelerate their results. Remember, these strategies are tools. Tools are not good or bad. It depends on how you use them. Use them to build passionate relationships where both people win, not to emotionally destroy women out of revenge. Power without responsibility is destruction. Power with responsibility is leadership. In the next video, we're going to explore how to detect when a woman is using these very same strategies against you. Because, brother, women naturally use their own versions of these tactics instinctively. And if you can't see them or counter them, you'll end up being the one seduced instead of the seducer. Don't miss it, because defensive knowledge is just as important as offensive. Until then, stay strategic, stay calculated, and never forget, seduction is a psychological chess game. Those who understand the rules control the board. Those who don't become pieces moved by others. Decide today what kind of player you're going to be. I'll see you in the next video.